In the making of video games, content is always cut from the final game shipped out around the world. From small changes to major removals, there is more the player could have experienced had the removed content been put into the final release. This series seeks to document this cut content, with each sub-series focusing on a new video game, primarily focusing on the Fallout franchise to start. In this first sub-series of the Cut Content Encyclopedia, we will be looking at the entry that pulled many fans into the Fallout community, Fallout 3. This sub-series tries its hand at attempting to document all cut content originally intended to be featured within Fallout 3 at some point in development. From locations, to weapons, to quests, and to so much more, this video will attempt to relay them all. The sections will be split up by topic, with DLC cut content being saved for a later date. So without further ado, let's jump into the first chapter of the Fallout 3 Cut Content Encyclopedia. Chesterbrook had the potential to be a rather difficult area within the game had it been fully implemented. This cut location was intended to be a heavily fortified area occupied by super mutants. A possible cut questline could have seen a team of Brotherhood of Steel Paladins enter into the territory. The team does this in hopes of recovering a cache of mini-nukes reportedly being stored there.
We were looking for Fat Man ammo. One of the scribes found a reference to a storage box and some old documents. We found the box all right, and the key. But then the mutants showed up. If I didn't know better, I'd swear that this was a trap.
Given this line by the cut NPC Paladin Bishop, it's hypothesized that the Lone Wanderer could have been tasked with saving the group as part of a cut questline. His dialogue file name, as well as the file name of other cut NPCs, point towards Chesterbrook having been a physical location within the game, not just one mention only. No files exist that point towards the location having been mapped out, textured, or having existed on the map itself at some point. It's likely the area never left the concept phase and was cut early on in development. Crystal City was originally intended to be a city within the map, but upon the game's final release, a cut metro signpost with Crystal City written on it was the only remnant of the cut location. Due to Crystal City's real-life close proximity to Washington, D.C., it's likely the location was included in earlier versions of the map, but as the map itself became smaller and more refined over time, the location was cut entirely. Mods, such as A World of Pain, reintroduce and reimagine this cut location. In A World of Pain, Crystal City is described as a huge, multi-level underground metro station, shopping center, and vault, all in one, with lots of abandoned and forgotten shops to explore. This added location also contains a plethora of deathclaws to encounter, so enter at your own risk. Unlike the previous two entries into this chapter, Potomac Steamworks, the location intended to be near Rivet City, is accessible using console commands. This area, mapped out, textured, and containing ghouls, appears to have been cut fairly late into the game compared to Crystal City and Chesterbrook. It's likely Potomac Steamworks would have been accessed through a manhole and through a door, though no entry method besides the console command will operate. Upon entering the location, the area is decently designed, but has no loose loot for the player. Feral ghouls occupy this space, and their bodies are the only place where loot will spawn. Some mods, such as Simply Uncut, re-implement the cut map. Using this mod, the player is able to naturally access Potomac Steamworks using the designed methods, rather than having to use console commands. Existing in the game's files in the form of a Pip-Boy icon, it's likely that the vault was cut entirely early on in development. A mod does exist that re-implements Vault 100, though this mod has been created for Fallout New Vegas rather than Fallout 3. This mod places the vault within Sloan, and while no quests exist for the vault, and some interiors are not completely finished, the mod is still early in development, and will likely see bigger updates in the future. Several building interiors were cut from the final release of the game, remaining unutilized while still existing within the game's files. These interiors and maps range from a variety of building interiors to testing areas used by developers. Why some of these maps were unused is unclear. This section will look at rooms ultimately unused and will not discuss rooms that are normally unseen but still have a purpose within the game, such as holding actors within a particular scene or encounter until they are ready, or areas originally used for testing purposes, though one or two more interesting areas will still make the encyclopedia. This unfinished interior is actually a textureless, barebones version of the player's home located in Megaton. Given the cell's name being Abandoned House, it's possible that this area was to act as the name implies. However, while the location is interesting, the cell will cause the game to crash upon loading and spending too much time within it. While still technically used within the game, the actual location is unseen in the final world map and normally inaccessible within the final game. Many fans spent hours searching for the famous bus seen within the opening cinematic of Fallout 3. Using the console command COC intro 01 will allow the player to load into this map and explore the intro animations version of the Wastelands of DC. This location is entirely inaccessible during regular gameplay. The room was originally intended to be accessible through Vault 92's Overseer's office. A tunnel was intended to open up by the player using the Overseer's terminal, but either through a developer error in forgetting to implement this option, or due to an intentional omission, this location cannot be accessed during normal gameplay. By using console commands and no-clipping into the room, the player is able to explore the unused space. The door leading in opposite of the Overseer's entrance is unusable. This area is actually quite interesting. It seems this map is a demo iteration of the Capital Wastelands with a design and atmosphere that seems completely different from that of the final map. The space itself is fairly large and features more dead flora than the final game.
Sure, you may want to grill it up sooner rather than later, if you know what I mean.
In this test stage are Wasteland Hunters, Yaoguais, and Mirelurks. Despite these actors in play, next to no items or loot are available for looting. This beta map or demo build shows us the earliest incarnation of the Capital Wastelands. As the names imply, these maps are unused interiors originally intended to be used within Little Lamplight. These interiors are the Little Lamplight Armory, the Spelunker's Restaurant, and a woman's restroom. In terms of substance, the maps provide very little and appear to be in an incomplete state. This area, like Test QA World, appears to be a demo for Vault 101. The player spawns into a room separate from Vault 101. Console commands are a necessity in order to fully traverse the beta build of Vault 101 outside of this initial spawn point. Some of the rooms exist within an incomplete state. Inside this Twilight Zone, Vault 101 is a solitary Mr. Handy with very little to say.
What is it now, sir?
Several quests were ultimately cut from the final game, with remnants of their NPCs, their locations, and their directions within the files. In this section, we will examine these cut quests. As stated in the section discussing the cut location Chester Brook, the location was originally supposed to have trapped Brotherhood of Steel members. Some speculate that the location would have had a questline tied to it, which could have seen the Lone Wanderer attempting to rescue or assist the trapped Brotherhood of Steel paladins. Escape is the fourth main quest in the game's storyline, and has the player successfully opening the door to Vault 101 and escaping out into the wastelands of Washington, D.C. Somewhere along the line, a step within the quest was cut from the overall directives. At some point in the quest, a stage would have had the player talk to Stanley in order to reactivate the generator within the vault and turn the power back on. This was done in order to open the door to the vault in order to escape. Given the 7 steps already present in the questline, it's possible this particular step was cut in order to preserve the quest's pacing. Infiltration was a cut quest meant to take place between the American Dream and Take It Back. Despite nothing being left of the quest itself, the remnants of the quest stages are still within the game's files. The quest was going to have the player enter into Rivet City through an underwater diving hatch, obtain a prototype power source, and then return said power source to Scribe Rothschild before speaking to Elder Lyons. Why this quest was cut is currently unknown, though due to Rivet City and the Brotherhood of Steel cooperating, it might have felt out of character to steal from the scientists at Rivet City. While the questline itself was cut, the plotline was reused in events taking place after Fallout 3. The Brotherhood of Steel would eventually take the reactor in order to power their airship, the Pridwin, seen within Fallout 4. Little is known about Last Rites. What is known is that it was intended to take place after Take It Back, and would have led to a game completion upon the quests being completed. Almost all traces of this quest were removed from the game's files, so as of 2021, little is actually known about what the quest would have had the player do outside of speculation and theorizing. Some theories suggest it would have taken place in the Jefferson Memorial's Rotunda during the final scenes of the main quests, and others suggest it would have served as a bridge to the first DLC, Operation Anchorage. MS-07, existing with no proper quest name, was intended to be a quest revolving around Sarah Lyons and likely would have had the player retrieve a strange disc that was ultimately never used within the game. It likely would have tied to the quests revolving around unearthing pre-war tech artifacts and bringing them back to the Brotherhood of Steel. However, outside of speculation, the stages of the quests are currently unknown.
that stray from the vault. Oh, I haven't seen one of you for years.
As with the quest Escape, Wasteland Survival Guide also contains a cut quest stage. In this cut stage, the player would have been tasked with heading to Hubris Comics in order to print out multiple copies of the Wasteland Survival Guide, likely for distribution purposes, before returning copies to Moira, who at this stage in development was called Lee. This would have most likely acted as one of the final stages, if not the final stage, of the questline. Caravan traders did not make it into the final release of the game, and despite their names, were not actually set up to trade with the player by the point of their abandonment. They would have roamed near Canterbury Commons and would have behaved similarly to the caravan traders of New Vegas, where their concept and models were recycled and re-implemented. While appearing in the game as an adult, there is a model featuring a younger Christine as she would have appeared during the quest Growing Up Fast. This model would have seen her as a child during the player's birthday party. David West appears in the final game as a rotten corpse who has been dead for quite a while. Prior to the introduction of this corpse, however, a more put-together model was in place for his body. Ethel is a cut glowing one, originally intended to be the friendly glowing one seen in the Underworld's Chop Shop. Ethel is an early version of this character, and was likely scrapped for a better developed model. This model is the basis for the Gary clones that appeared in Vault 108. Despite being the basis for the clones in 108, his model appears to be wearing Dad's Vault 101 jumpsuit. Karen Ann Tuck Johnson. Karen Johnson is an unused Andel resident. Despite her being cut, she still has scripting that has her interacting with other Andel residents. It appears she was abandoned sometime prior to the creation of the unmarked quest, Our Little Secret. Another cut NPC, Tuck Johnson, likely would have been her husband. Given the mention of 4 families having survived the Great War within Andel, it's likely that Karen and Tuck were meant to be one of these families. Little Toe and Trigger. These characters had connections to the quest The Replicated Man. The player would have bribed Little Toe in order to learn that slavers had sent someone into Rabbit City in search of an escaped android. Little Toe had a connection to Trigger in some way, with Trigger going to give the player a clue relating to the quest. Meat was also an early version of the friendly glowing one in the Underworld, just as Ethel was. Paladins Bishop and Northup, along with a few other cut Brotherhood of Steel Paladins, were characters originally intended to be involved with the cut location Chesterbrook. Judging from Northup's cut dialogue, it's theorized that the pair, along with other Paladins, became trapped in Chesterbrook after attempting to recover some mini-nukes. Both characters were ultimately cut from the final release, likely due to the fact that Chesterbrook was cut as well. Only a model for Northup exists in the files. There also seems to be some confusion online as to whether or not Bishop and Northup are 2 separate characters or are the same character with 2 different designations. Professor Malleus, a scientist from Vault 92, is an unseen character in the final game. While only appearing in the game in the form of notes and audio logs, a model of him can still be found within the game's files. Why his model was left unused is unknown. A set of 6 NPCs, collectively called Rock Creek Hunters, are cut characters originally intended to be included in the Rock Creek Cavern. Additional information points towards these hunters being Grandma Sparkle's boys out hunting lurks, prior to their removal from the game. Sparkles' dialogue is the only remaining hint within the game towards their existence. Stacy is an NPC originally intended to be in Little Lamplight. Stacy was a guard for Little Lamplight with another girl named Caps. The two shared a close bond. While Stacy was out searching for hats to give to Caps, the origin for her nickname, Caps was, unfortunately, killed by raiders. Ever since then, Stacy has become the lone guard for the front gate, blaming herself for her friend's death. It's a lot for a kid to deal with, even in a wasteland. 2 unused models would have also shown the characters as younger versions of themselves during Growing Up Fast's birthday party section, with Susie as a child and Stevie as a teenager. Very little is known about O'Grady, other than that he was intended to be a guard. He would have carried around O'Grady's Peacemaker, which was also cut from the final game as well. Costler and Sykes were cut characters mentioned in an unused holotape who are kidnapping and experimenting on people in Vault 87. Don Foster, Drew Mercinelli, and Richard Wineski were residents of Vault 87 that were mentioned in Cut terminal entries in the Overseer's office. Warwick was a Cut scribe for the Brotherhood of Steel who died on a mission. His only mention is in a Cut note. Miranda Strayer was the mother of Ted, a resident of Rivet City, and the wife of Jeff Strayer. Where Miranda went is unknown, and the only mention of her is in a Cut note. Gerard and Judy were part of the Roosevelt Academy staff before the start of the Great War. The only mention of the pair is a Cut holotape from Gerard to Judy discussing a malfunctioning Mr. Handy being put into storage. Maggie and Robin were mother and daughter, and residents of Hamilton's Hideaway following the Great War. They were likely included in Cut terminal entries within the Hideaway. Frank is another Cut character mentioned in terminal entries in Hamilton's Hideaway. He had a more fleshed out backstory in his entries, discussing how he helped build Hamilton's Hideaway, how being in a mineshaft trying to sell generators to a company saved his life, about crawling through rubble to make it out of the shaft, and his long journey to Hamilton's Hideaway in a post-war land. Frank attempted to enter a vault outside of Burkittsville, Maryland, but was ultimately denied entry and almost killed by a pack of cannibals in the area. By the time he reached the Hideaway, he was already succumbing to the effects of radiation poisoning and died shortly thereafter. Jeannie McAndrews is another Cut character that had a more fleshed out backstory. Jeannie was an employee of LOB Enterprises prior to the start of the Great War. Jeannie admits to shooting several people in order to get her job, and after being sexually harassed by another employee by the name of Sam Johnson, went with another employee for overnight shooting lessons in order to accidentally shoot Sam. 4 creatures, all with the tag Abominations or Abominable, were uploaded to Adamowicz's Bethesda blog account after his passing. These were concept art creations for possible mutated creatures to be featured in Fallout 3. Blind albino newts were creatures that appeared in concept art for Little Lamplight. They would have been found in the pools and streams of the cave system. At some point in development, the Brotherhood of Steel would have had a RoboBrain among their ranks. While textures do exist in the files for the Brotherhood RoboBrain, the textures are not attached to any RoboBrain model. This centaur, with the internal name attaching him to the quest to Wasteland Survival Guide, is your typical centaur with a designated name. Due to its association with a quest within the Wasteland Survival Guide, it's likely that the creature was to be killed for an entry into the guide. Catfish Mirelurks were early variants and design concepts for the Mirelurk species. The art featured a noticeably catfish-inspired aesthetic that ultimately went unused in the final game. Unfortunately, these designs never made it past the concept phase. Doc is actually the model that the Lone Wanderer's father takes when inside of the Tranquility Lane simulation. While Doc is technically present in the game, the model does not appear anywhere else in the game, and therefore is not seen with a full color palette outside of Tranquility Lane's sepia aesthetic. At one point, the Enclave was to have a RoboBrain among their ranks. The model does exist in the game, but no textures, decals, or color palettes would indicate its allegiance to the Enclave. Floaters were creatures originally featured within the Black Isle Fallout titles that did not see a return to the series until Fallout 76. Despite the gap between official appearances, the floaters do make a return in Fallout 3 concept art, though the classic creatures did not make it past that stage. 3 variants were drafted, included the Lamprey Floater, the Manowar Tendril Floater, and the Needle Tooth Floater, all of which are nightmare fuel. Back in the concept art phase of development, it appears that massive mole rats were, at one point, in consideration as rideable creatures. From what I can tell, the designs never left this initial concept phase and were likely scrapped in favor of the Brahmin. It's unknown if the player could ride it themselves, or how it would operate with companions, which likely led to its overall exclusion. While Fallout 3 features some fairly large rodents, a much larger rat variant was drafted in the concept art phase. This larger variant would have seen a Yaoguai treatment, with fur falling off of its body, and the ability to stand on its hind legs in some concept art. Think Yaoguai, but only walking on its hind legs. This mutated bear would have likely gone in conjunction with the Yaoguai. The name itself is a play on the Mogwai, meaning evil spirit or devil of Chinese culture, similar to how Yaoguai translates to monster or demon in Mandarin. It's likely that this version was drafted to give some variety to the Yaoguai variants in the final release. Mr. Mulberry is a cut Mr. Handy robot, which was originally intended to appear in Megaton. Outside of its unique name, the Mr. Handy variant offers only 2 generic dialogue lines when spoken to. The Wanamingo is an enemy featured in Fallout 2 that was heavily inspired by the Xenomorph from Ridley Scott's Alien franchise. While the Wanamingo does not make an appearance in Fallout 3, a mutant variant of the creature was considered as a hostile enemy early in the game's production. The Centaur enemy was originally planned to have a variant called the Twin Centaur. This version of the creature had 2 torsos splitting off of its body, with 2 separate entities occupying the same lower body. Each of the twins was to have, in terms of lore, a separate and distinct personality. These creatures never made it past the concept art phase, and never saw any textures or models created for them. While the Protectron was included in the final release of the game, several decals were left out of the final design, and cannot be found on any Protectron within the game. The Ustalago Noslin is not necessarily a creature, but a fungus intended to be found in the caves around Vault 106. The fungus was never meant to appear in the game physically, but was to be of mention only. Regardless, the fungi was ultimately cut. The Waste Wolf is a creature cut early on in the game's development. Never making it past the conceptual phase, the Waste Wolf was to be a mutated wolf with similar deformities and features as the Yaogwai seen in the game. The reason behind the Waste Wolf's exclusion stems from its visual similarities to both buffalo and hyenas. A more well-known bit of cut content is the Tenpenny Tower radio station hosted by Alistair Tenpenny. Many lines of dialogue were recorded for this unused radio station that can still be found within the game's files. Some of the dialogue is typical radio stingers and intro and outros, while other files are what are called Tenpenny truisms, which are bits of proverbs and maxims that Tenpenny would broadcast to the player.
And now it's time for another Tenpenny truism. On that vast plain of dust we will raise new cities, and like the phoenix, spread the wings of new life and take flight. This has been a Tenpenny truism.
A mod does exist that re-implements the cut radio station, should you want to experience a more fully realized version of Fallout 3. The mod re-implements Tenpenny's cut dialogue and adds in 33 new tracks to listen to. Due to just how many items were eventually cut and unused in the final release, we will not be spending too much time on each one. So these will come across as more rapid-fire entries as we have a lot of items to discuss. All-Purpose Science Suit, a version of the Enclave Scientist outfit. The Apocalypse Gladiator Armor, a version of the metal armor but with a higher item HP. The Army Power Armor, a power armor identical to the prototype Medic Power Armor with the US military insignia, but has no corresponding helmet. Blastoff Helmet, a space helmet with matching Blastoff pajamas, but is unusable, will not even appear in the inventory. Commando Armor, which is just a copy of the leather armor. Composite Recon Armor, which is nearly identical to the composite armor found within the game, but this modified version adds a buff to the armor stats, as well as having a +1 perception on the helmet. Defender Armor, which is just another clone of the leather armor. The Devil's Pigtails, which is a clone of a unique version of the Raider Psychotix helmet found in the final release. Dr. Lee's Glasses, which was likely a part of Dr. Lee's beta design before the final version removed her glasses. Enclave Shock Trooper Armor, which is a unique Enclave-specific power armor that had buffed the base HP, though with a nerf to the damage resistance. Explorer's Gear, which is a unique Merc Troublemaker armor, which had a lower weight, and while it was removed in Fallout 3, the unique armor made its official debut in New Vegas. Hand-Me-Down Power Raider Armor, which is a Raider Sadist armor with a lower damage resistance due to the hand-me-down nature. Handyman Jumpsuit, which is a clone of the Red's jumpsuit, and an alternative version would see an appearance in the Point Lookout DLC, albeit with different stats and visuals. Highway Scar Armor, which is fairly similar to the Raider Blastmaster armor in the base game, but has a lower overall damage resistance. The unusable version of the leather armor that can be spawned in, but cannot be equipped. Makeshift Gas Mask. While technically in the base game in Vault 106, the original functionality, which was to filter out the fumes within Vault 106, was disabled and the equipability of the items were disabled as well. Night Vision Goggles, which were meant to go with a Merc Veteran outfit but remain unused. Power Suit Armor, which is similar to the grimy pre-war business wear outfit in the base game, but this item has a higher monetary value in the game. Unique pre-war outfits, which offer no visually distinct features different from the base pre-war outfits outside of the unique identifiers in the editor. The Pink War Power Armor is a colorful variant of the standard power armor in the base game, but has a heart painted onto the chest piece. Outside of these differences, not much is known about the stats or buffs it could have provided. Pre-war outfit and watch is the outfit worn by the player while they are in Tranquility Lane, which also features an unused child version meant for the child NPCs. Pyro Helmet is a unique Raider helmet which is similar to the base Blastmaster helmet, but lacks the stat bonuses. Road Rascal Leather Armor is yet another leather armor clone. Robo-Thor armor and helmet are unique variants of the Tesla armor in the base game with slightly modified stats. Sharp Dressed Raider's armor is a modified unique Raider Pain Spike armor that has a lower damage resistance. Shell-Shocked Combat Armor is essentially a clone of the combat armor with a different name. Sleepwear is a unique version of the sexy sleepwear with a higher monetary value. Surgical Mask is an item that has ties to the Wasteland Survival Guide quest. It's likely that the item was to be involved in a cut step or was intended to be used in a pre-existing step. One version has no model or menu icon but does offer +5 medical points, poison resistance, and radiation resistance, while a second version, which is worn by the Lone Wanderer's father in the opening scene, is modeled and equipable but has no effect on the player. We have the Talon Combat Armor, which is a unique variant that had a higher damage resistance, monetary value, and higher item HP, but has no visually differing features from the base Talon Combat Armor. Underwear used the same model as the Vault 101 suit for male characters, but acted as underwear for female characters, which raises the question of whether underwear was equipable at some points, and if so, does that imply nudity was considered at some points in development? No idea, but it's definitely an interesting thought. The Vault 87 jumpsuit, which is just as the name implies, not sure why it went unused. Vault 92 jumpsuit, which is also as the name implies, and despite being completed as well, is also unimplemented. Wasteland Scout Hat, which is a hat meant for child NPCs, though it doesn't actually fit their models correctly, which makes them look a little bit wonky. And finally, the Wastelander's Gear, which is a unique Merc Troublemaker variant that has a weight of 2. The Air Hammer is a cut weapon that appeared in early concept art. The exact nature of the weapon is unclear, but does boast a fairly heavy-looking machine that the user would wear on their back. Baseballs can be fired at players from traps in the game, though the player can never actually use them as weapons themselves due to the throwing skill being scrapped. Had the skill been implemented, it's likely that the baseball would have been a throwable object to damage hostile actors. Black Bart's Bane. While appearing to be a normal BB gun, this cut variant had all of its stats doubled from the base BB gun. The name itself is a reference to a scene from A Christmas Story, wherein Ralphie takes aim at a target and says, "Okay, Black Bart, now you get yours." The Breaker is a nailboard variant that deals out more damage and has double the durability of the base weapon. While a unique variant, the Breaker can still be repaired using standard nailboards. Clover's Cleaver is a variant of the Chinese officer's sword that was intended to be used by the character Clover. The weapon boasts a higher damage and damage per second, but has a lower critical chance than the base variant. Why the weapon was left unused is unknown. Before its debut in Fallout 4, the Cryolator, spelled with a K in this iteration, was originally intended to be featured in Fallout 3. The weapon went unimplemented, possibly due to budget and time constraints. The item is cut from the GUC as well, meaning the weapon cannot be accessed through console commands and be used in-game. Mods do restore functionality and access, giving us a look at what could have been. The Cursebreaker and the Excalibat are two unique baseball variants with some buffs from that of their base counterpart. Boasting higher damage, crit chances, and higher durability, these variants could have been repaired using standard baseball bats. The Excalibat is clearly inspired by the legend of King Arthur. Fists. So this is an interesting weapon. While technically coded as part of the game's engine rather than pulling from added assets, the player can still use them against NPCs, though they will not deal any damage and will not garner a reaction of any kind. Mason jar mines are concept art iterations of the improvised explosives found in the game. This explosive was likely scrapped in favor of the bottle cap mine. The Tranquility Lane frag mine is a weapon that was cut from the Tranquility Lane questline. This variant of the frag mine would have been used as an alternative method for killing Mabel Henderson in the quest. The frag mine, while normally unobtainable, can be spawned in using console commands and deals a whopping 300 times normal damage, and is valued at 3,900 caps as opposed to the typical 25 caps. It's likely that the damage is so high in order to ensure that the Mabel NPC will always be killed by it. Up next is a laser rifle variant that appeared in the demo. This version is, all around, a weaker version of the laser rifle seen in the base game, and was only utilized for demonstration purposes. The Law Dog is a unique 32 pistol that has a higher damage and value than that of the base variant of the weapon, though is visually identical to the common 32 pistol. The Love Tap is a brass knuckle variant that boasts a higher damage, a higher critical multiplier, and a higher critical damage than that of the base variant. The Love Tap even uses 3 fewer action points per attack in VATS. Despite these advantages, the Love Tap has half as much item HP as the base brass knuckles. As mentioned before in the cut step for the Wasteland Survival Guide, the Mirelurk bait grenade was intended to be used to bait Mirelurks. Due to the step being removed and the item's effect being either unfinished or unimplemented, the grenade does not actually lure Mirelurks. O'Grady's Peacemaker is a cut weapon that is attached to a cut character by the name of O'Grady, covered in the cut NPC section. The character was to have this unique weapon as they stood guard. Compared to the base variant of the Police Baton, the Peacemaker has a higher damage, item HP, and monetary value, though it does wind up using more AP when using the weapon with VATS. The Piggy Bank Grenade is exactly what it sounds like, a piggy bank filled with bottle caps rigged to explode. As with the Mason Jar Mine, this was likely scrapped in favor of the standard bottle cap mine. Sonora Cruz's 10mm pistol is technically attached to the character. However, since she is programmed to flee and never to attack, Sonora never actually uses the weapon. Due to this, the weapon is essentially useless and unusable, as it will never appear on her body after being killed, nor will it appear when attempting to pickpocket. Wanda is a cut assault rifle variant that can be accessed within the test QA item cell within the game using console commands. Alternatively, it can be spawned in the overworld using console commands as well. The variant has no noticeable changes outside of its name. Outside of weapons that can be spawned in or re-added in with mods, several textures and assets went unused in the files. Some of these assets were likely meant to be applied to unique weapon variants or served as precursor assets before the final designs were cemented. These assets include a baseball bat texture, a Molotov cocktail, and a Nuka cocktail. Hello everyone, SinisterHeart here. Thank you so much for sticking around till the end of the video. Trying to get this video written out, recorded, edited, re-recorded, then finalized turned out to be quite the undertaking when you're a full-time teacher, and it's nearly the end of the school year, especially this school year. So it really boiled down to me being only able to work on the video during the weekends, as my weekdays are filled with teaching, and that's where all my time and energy went, and just trying to survive my first year teaching, really. Also, assistant directing for a play up until the end of April. That also kind of helped split my time up quite a bit lately. I could not have gotten this video out without the help of Zombie Killer, who helped collect a lot of the footage for this video, so big shout out to him. I hope to get part 2 out sometime soon, which will focus on additional cut content that wasn't covered in this video, plus DLC cut content. If you have any suggestions for future videos, maybe there's content that I left out in this video that you felt should have been included, or something that should be included in a next video or a future video, please leave a comment down below. I love reading them. As always, thank you for watching. Leave a like if you liked, dislike if you disliked it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and try to share the video. Let's try to grow the channel more than it already is. God, I'm really bad at this. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.